So hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Spur of the Moment. We got a great question in from Louisa about bitless riding and if you could start a young horse in a Hackamore.
It's such an interesting question. I think we use bits and bitless here on the ranch, and we have a lot of conversations with our students about what should we do, bit or bitless. And it's an ongoing discussion. Are bits bad? We even have people using it as an excuse. So like I point out that people's hands are really bad or the contact is bad, and then their answer is, well, I used to ride bitless, so it doesn't matter. What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Thank you. When it comes to bits, really the question is not bit or bitless. The question is, what kind of contact does the rider use? There are three types of contact out there, and the distinction is not between the English riding world and the Western riding world. Here's the three types. The proactive blocker with contact, the proactive puller with contact, or the reactive puller with contact. And here's what those are. Imagine I'm your horse. Here's my face. We're not talking about a bit yet. We're just talking about the reins attached to the hands. And here is the proactive puller. My rider knows that my rider wants to go to the right, so the rider pulls my face to the right with the right rein. That would be a proactive puller. The reactive puller wants to go to the right, but they ride with such sloppy, loose reins, no contact, that it just so happens that while they want to turn to the right, their horse is looking left. So they pull it to the right. That would be the reactive puller. The proactive blocker has contact, bit or bitless, and the contact is not proactively or reactively pulling the face in a direction, just the opposite. It's holding the face and blocking it. So before we get into bit or bitless, I would encourage everyone, what kind of hands do you have? And I know people don't like to hear this, but here it goes. The most aggressive hands that horses dislike the most are actually found in the people who don't believe in contact. This is the sad irony. Because people who want to be nice to their horse's mouth will ride with totally sloppy, loose reins. And when they're riding with those loose reins, their horse makes a turn to look at something out of distraction. And what those nice hands that don't want to pull do is reach down and pull. So very often people with loose reins are reactive pullers in denial of the fact that they are so pulling on their horse.
Yeah, it makes them feel good because, hey, I have no contact, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't drink unless I feel like it. Yeah.
Oh, and a good question that lots of people ask is, so what is the bridle for if we're not using it for steering?
I love that question. So basically there are two types. Nature developed two types of movement in horses. Again, I'm the horse, and I'm about to be turned to my right. Did my nose go first? Was it the nose that was initiated into the turn first? Or did my nose go last? This is my nose going to the right after, sorry Lizzie, after my body is sent out to the left, the nose is last. This is when you may have seen me bring up skiing analogies and the wheelbarrow walk analogies. Skiing, the ski tip is not the first thing into the turn, it's the last thing into the turn. So your horse has this horizontal body. And the definition of hold your horses, there is no old saying, pull your horses. And there is no ancient saying that if you pull them bitless, you're therefore a better person. The old saying is hold your horses. So I will have a righteous opinion that it's not about whether you ride with the bit or bitless. It's really a question of what kind of contact you have. Yeah. Are you the proactive blocker that's working with biomechanics and physics, saying, no, sweetheart, your nose must not go first, it must go last. That we never pull a nose into a turn. We release a nose into a turn after the body has been bent and turned from the rider's core into the horse's core.
Yeah.
So the purpose of a bridle ultimately, bit or bitless, is not for you to pull your horse in the direction you want it to go. It's to block boundaries telling your horse where not to go.
Super interesting. But I think we have to go back a bit to Louise's specific question. Like, we can talk about this for a long time, but I think we have to also answer a question about the Hackamore.
The Hackamore, yeah.
And if you can start a young green horse in a Hackamore, if you have to use that full contact as a block.
Well, I'm not trying to avoid answering these questions. I'm going to dig deeper into them. The term Hackamore actually is an issue.
Yeah.
Different people use that term loosely. What I find Europeans referring to as a Hackamore is not what Californians refer to as a Hackamore, or the buckaroos, the cowboys in the Southwest of America. So Louise, when you ask that question, there's Hackamores and there are mechanical Hackamores. Would I start a young horse in a bitless Hackamore that has long mechanical levers? Not a chance. No. The Hackamore is a worthy bridle in hands that are good hands. When it comes to starting the young horse, again, everybody has these opinions, but the biomechanics and the physics are this: that ultimately you would be helping your horse with your contact be in a good frame of body that balances the body and triggers all the good physiology and biochemistry that comes when a horse is moving back to front with nose last into the turn. So Louise, I would have to ask you, mechanical Hackamore with leverage or not? The not leveraged Hackamore in good hands that proactively block can definitely be used to start a young horse. If it doesn't have an anomaly, any kind of abnormalities in its mouth. When I do believe in the bitless bridle is when, due to its own anatomy or an accident or an injury with the way people have ridden it, that really you can't put a bit in a horse's
Like
mouth.
Frodo here on the ranch.
Yeah.
You can not have a bit anymore.
Yeah, Frodo is a horse that Lizzie and Claire got from me a few years ago. That horse, Frodo, a Dutch Warmblood, was given to me as a last chance horse. The other trainers had given up on him because his behavior was so bad. And when I got him and I saw his behavior, one of the first things I did was look inside his mouth. And sure enough, someone had sawed on his mouth with an aggressive bit, probably a twisted wire bit. They almost severed his tongue. He's got a deep groove in his tongue.
Yes.
He's got a lot of scar tissue on his tongue and in his mouth. We'll never put a bit in that horse's mouth again. But now please hear this. Just because one trainer abused that horse with a bit does not mean that bits are bad. It doesn't.
No.
Hear this. It has been said when bitless bridles first came out that to sell them, unfortunately, some people have just bought into a marketing shtick. To sell the bitless bridle, many of you have heard that horses don't like to have things in their mouth. But it's not true. Because you've also seen the horse take its lead rope in its mouth.
Yeah, Murphy always does that.
Yeah, and you've seen horses, they're turned out in the arena or the round pen and someone left a lunge whip laying on the ground and they pick it up.
Yeah.
So we've all seen this with horses. And like us, chewing on a pencil, like a baby sucking on its pacifier, if you have proactive blocking her hands that make sure the nose is always last into the turn, and your horse's mouth is not damaged, and there's no anatomical reason why it couldn't wear a bit. If your horse is in good hands, then the bit is the pacifier. So this message is going to offend some people, but hear this. Spiritual illusions. If you have really good hands, you can use a nice soft snaffle bit and you're connected to your horse's pacifier. Horses love my hands. On the other hand, if you don't have good hands and you don't want to make yourself better, you don't want to improve yourself, well, then just go bitless and have a righteous attitude. All right?
So I think that answers Lou's question. We have a great question about the round pen for the next episode. So thank you all for watching and
Spur you later.